Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel with some new Doctor Who. New Doctor Who.
Hooray!
Whoa-hey. Yes, last weekend, the weekend just gone, saw the new episode come out, Legend of the Sea Devils. This featured the same TARDIS team that was in Flux and that was in Eve of the Daleks on New Year's. That is Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor, John Bishop as Dan, and Mandip Gill as Yasmin. A very wholesome, very great TARDIS team. And
Agreed.
it also featured the return of the Sea Devils, which Liam really
Yes! I've ordered a Sea Devil jumper from Forbidden Planet. I'm so excited.
amazing. I'm
I wish
surprised you
it.
didn't
I
have
wish
that
they
instead.
released.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't come out until the 30th,
Oh,
which
that's
is why I was like,
silly.
I know. Well, it's like a retro theme thing. So there's like a Zygon one and a
Right.
Silurian one. So it's not like it's just like a
Oh,
Titan.
yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm so excited
I
for it.
get it. Oh, that sounds great. But yes, as you might have guessed, Liam's a fan of the Sea Devils. And
I
they
am.
made their long-awaited return. How long has it been? 40 odd years?
38
There you
years.
go. So it's been a long time coming. They hadn't appeared in New Who before, at least not explicitly shown and introduced. They had a little bit of a redesign this time. We'll come on to all of that, I'm sure. Um, this episode saw our TARDIS team in what was it 1803,
I want to say
1807?
1807. I want to
Yeah,
say.
one of them. And they stumble onto the Sea Devils, going, "Ooh, we're bad guys,"
We've
and they
been
have to
freed
stop
from the
them.
statue,
Yes.
basically.
So what? We won't be around the bush. What did you think of the episode?
I think it's fine.
Yep.
I think you can very much tell it was kind of thrown together
Mhm.
with scissors and duct tape. I would say the cracks certainly do show,
Yep.
but I am grateful that we did get an extra bonus episode that we weren't going to get. So all things considered with that, I think they did a pretty bloody good job with it. But yeah, I think some of its biggest flaws come from the fact that I think it's a very simple story made out to be a lot more complicated than it is. I
Yes.
think that's safe to say. I would not all be surprised if this was written and filmed to be an hour long, and then the BBC were like, "Oh, we only have a 15-minute slot. Sorry, we need to cut 10 minutes out of it," which I feel like probably did also spurn some of my issues with it in terms of like side characters, resolutions, pacing stuff. But
Everything. Yeah.
yeah, everything to do with it was yeah. But I still enjoyed it. I'm entertained by it. Would I have been as entertained if it wasn't the Sea Devils? Honestly, probably not. But they were in it, and yeah, I enjoyed seeing them again. And I like that ties team a lot anyway. So I can kind of watch them go on their shenanigans and stuff. So yeah, lots of great moments in it as well. Did it blow my mind? No. Was it the best episode of the era? No. Was it the best special we've ever gotten? No. Was it the worst? I would also say no.
No,
Um,
that's
but
not.
yeah, I enjoyed it very, very much.
Yeah.
So yeah, a solid, Easter outing and
Mhm.
kind of whet my appetite a bit, after Eve of the Daleks and getting ready for Jodie's final story, which we still didn't have the title for, and unfortunately, but still, I think it's a solid, fun, good time.
Yes, I do agree. I think it's kind of it. It's a detriment to itself that it's labelled a special. I think if this
Yes,
came in the middle of a series, you'd be like, "Hey, this is great. This is a
mm,
good solid
that's true.
adventure." But because it's a special and it's one of three episodes we're getting this year, and you've waited 4 months for a new episode. We're going to be waiting probably 5 months for another one. It's I think that hurts it a little
It's the
bit.
Planet of the Dead of the specials, I think,
Yeah, it's
in a
because
way.
you're expecting it to be more, and unfortunately, it's just not. Um, it's not special. I think is ironically is the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's an Easter all right
Yes,
rather than an Easter special.
it's definitely the best Easter special we've ever had.
That is true.
So that's got it going
And
for
I
it at
can
least.
categorically say that having only
Yeah,
watched Planet of the Dead a few weeks ago. So.
yeah, exactly. But I do agree that there's just the main issue. I think I said it on when we watched it live was that I think it just lacked a little bit of depth, which we'll sort of go on to. And I do agree that the Sea Devils kind of added that little bit of sort of specialness to it, I guess, because if you just had a generic villain in this one and it wasn't as iconic and it just sort of didn't play as well, I think you'd be struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it is kind of lose-lose in that way, I think, because, maybe if it was a surprise return for Sea Devils and they weren't in the trailer or something in the last one, it'd been, oh my God, this is insane,
Yeah.
which would have been good. But, the fact that it was pre-announced, people are going to have that hype then, especially when it was 3 months prior.
Yeah.
And then I think some people would be like, oh, is that it? Oh, okay. But if it wasn't the Sea Devils, it just generic sea monsters or something to kind of fit in with the theme, people have been like, oh, this story's dull.
Yeah.
So, I think it's the, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Lesser of two evils, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, because I mean, as we've always said, not every episode of Doctor Who needs to be the absolute best episode of Doctor Who. Episodes can just be good. They're enjoyable. I had fun with that.
Most of them are.
Yeah, literally most of them are, and that's fine. You can like what you like. If you think this is the best thing ever, fantastic. Please don't take offense to anything that we say that's negative. It's just what we think. And if you think this is the worst thing ever, please don't take offense to anything positive we think. That's just what
Yes.
we think.
None of this is a personal attack.
No. Except,
and based on my comment section, people had opinions on this one.
Oi! It's alright, I don't get that many comments on mine, so I'll be free. But yes, we will follow the same format as we do with every other review episode we do on this channel. We have 3-ish positives and 3-ish negatives. I've got more of each because why not? Hey, new Doctor Who.
That's nice.
We're not having this episode again for another 6 months, so let's make it last. So we'll start with your first positive then. I have a feeling I might know what it might be.
You're going to be shocked to your core at what my first positive is.
Madame Ching?
Yes, it is. No. I'd forgotten she was in it. No. The Sea Devils is obviously my number one thing. My Sea Boys, I love them. Very excited when they showed up in that trailer. At the end of Eve of the Daleks, my life was fully complete. I'd realised something had been missing. And yeah, it's to get to watch Sea Devils live in a new episode for the first time since I was born, which is fun. I have very fond memories of watching John Pertwee with my dad when I was little. Sea Devils was one of the ones that we watched. So I love those boys. And I love that they stayed very, very true to their design in this one. I think they looked great. Again, I think the budget does kind of show through in the fact it's a shame none of the masks were like animatronic or anything. It's just they CGI'd the masks.
Blue thing.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. And they didn't talk properly like that really in the classic series anyway. So, it's fine. It's a bonus episode. But yeah, I think they still looked fantastic. I liked the kind of pirate twist to them and featuring them in a story like this. I think it's interesting. Their costuming was all really cool. I liked, partly the threat that they posed and their glowy swords and stuff. It was just great to see them again. I think they, it's a design that does stand a test of time. And it's the last kind of monster that I really want to see from the classic series come back ticked off the list. So I'm always going to be satisfied with that. So to get them back, it's kind of good enough in itself. But the fact that they looked great, I think, I like the personality of the leader guy in particular. Yeah, they were a really great villain to kind of see. And I think they were a good, almost fitting pairing for 13 as well. It was cool to see her particular face the Sea Devils again compared to like some other modern Doctors. It seems like a nice pairing, I think. So yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed having having them show up again, and they looked great.
Yep, I think that's fair enough, and that's why the Sea Devil design is my second positive on my list, actually.
Ooh.
I think I'm sticking with just sort of the overall design aspect, for obviously reasons that we'll probably come on to in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they look great. I think they're a very interesting, or they can be a very interesting villain. I hadn't watched.
Not here.
I hadn't watched sort of any of their classic Who sort of episodes, so I was sort of very much like I know who they are, and I know that they're a villain, but I didn't know much backstory, and I think that they do a good job here of sort of introducing it to a new audience, which I don't often get. Having watched Doctor Who for this long, is a returning villain having to be reintroduced to everyone again. The last time we kind of had it was probably with the Zygons, I guess, in Day of the Doctor. Because I don't think we've had
probably would have been
old returning villain, unless I'm forgetting something that Chibnall did that I can't remember. Who knows? I guess we'll find out.
I think that probably sounds about right.
Yeah,
Because,
so,
they were Mondasian Cybermen at the end of the Capaldi's run, but they're still Cybermen. People
yeah,
know what they are.
yeah. So I sort of didn't know too much about them, and I felt that this gives you enough context as to the history between the Doctor and the enemy, and sort of where they stood at the time and where they stand now. And also, if you then also know what the situation is, there's also that little extra bit in there for you and little references that you can be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Which I didn't necessarily have, which is why I didn't have the reaction that you did to the reveal of them. And they're going, yay!
Yeah, I remember I watched it back like in preparation for the episode, and I'm just like, Sea Devils, and you're like, oh boy, that's neat.
Yay, neato!
I know that. I've seen that in a book.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, I think they look great though. I think they're a nice sort of, you believe that they come from the ocean, kind of like the redesigned Silurians. You believe they came from the Earth, and yeah, they look great. Obviously, the mouth doesn't move too much, but that's fine. It's a prosthetic mask. A lot of that doesn't happen. Um, so it was a really good design. I really like their style. I think it's just a shame that maybe there was only sort of one main Sea Devil really, and the rest was sort of cannon fodder effectively. But that's something else. Either way, I like them, and I would love for them to sort of come back again. But we shall see. Obviously, Chibs only has one episode left, so I don't think they'll be reappearing in that one.
No, I'd be surprised.
But you never know. They could come back in a few years' time. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, team them up with the Silurians again.
I mean, yeah, you could,
but better than Warriors of the Deep, please.
They almost definitely could.
Face it, Tegan. He's drowned.
Oh, if only we had a reference to that this time.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
Tegan. I mean,
oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, could you imagine? No, I don't.
She was in a Sea Devil episode again.
I don't think that'll happen. But yes. So, what is your second positive then?
My second. What was it? The Doctor and Yaz kind of subplot was mine. For the most part, I think it was, a neat bit of development. I think it was just hard from a writing standpoint anyway, because Jinnah would have had his plans like either the Daleks and then the Centenary, and then you're like, oh, here's a bonus one. So you're also like, oh, how can I progress this story, even though I had plans to just progress it and finish it off in the next one?
Yeah.
I still have to I can't just not address it because people get mad. So I think them just kind of ending up. Let's just focus on the present and what we have now.
Out of the box and then puts it back in the box again.
Basically, the Rusty Davies method. Put it back in the box at the end. Basically, and tried and tested, and I'm sure there will be a bit more to it, given that we're going to be losing 13 and Yaz in the next one. I did like more so, I guess, on the Doctor's side of development, because she was the one who more so opened up in this one. Kind of said, if I do it with anyone, it would be with you, and all of that, and very much got like a similar scene to what we had in School Reunion, like the Curse of the Time Lords kind of deal. Just kind of comes to that conclusion after all she'd lost all over again. So I did like that for the first time. I think 13's actually honest about how she felt about something, which, hooray, just in time for her to die.
Yep.
But still,
finally, some character development.
But maybe being told that she was going to die soon was maybe something that spurred that on. But, she actively made the effort to take Yaz with her on things this time, which again is probably a first. It happened multiple times in that episode. So I did like that kind of development, and I thought it was played very well. You can tell that Jodie and Mandip are like BFFs in real life, because I do think they have a nice kind of on-screen chemistry together. I think it's quite sweet. The only thing I think that kind of didn't really work for me is, and this sounds horrible. This sounds really horrible.
Oh boy.
Yaz is lovely. She is far from one of the greatest people the Doctor's ever met. What has she done? Yeah. Until Flux, what has she done?
She did some post-it notes on the TARDIS the TARDIS wall.
She's obsessed. Yeah, but she's lovely. There's maybe there's just a lot of stuff we haven't seen, which again is still kind of a shame that it's all happening off screen, maybe. But I just didn't buy that side of things. Like, of course, she might like her, or whatever. They spent a lot of time together, they've been through a lot, particularly with this incarnation. But I don't think the show up to this point has shown us enough to really sell that standpoint. Say what you will about the Doctor and Rose, we actively saw Rose help the Doctor through one of the most difficult times in his life with like getting over the Time War and stuff. Don't you? Yeah, I don't like
Did we
ones.
know? Did we know?
Yes, we did visibly, I think.
Sure.
With Eccleston from the start to the finish. He's a broken man, and I think Rose kind of helped him through that. She's a terrible person, don't get me wrong, but you know, she helped him through selfish means because he was the only person she cared about in that entire 2 seasons she was in. But yeah, I don't think we quite got enough of that in terms of, you know, a line like that. I think it could have hit a bit harder if we'd actually maybe seen a bit more to it. Because you know, I think until Flux, I don't think Yaz really had like a proper character and proper things to do. So maybe if we'd had 3 seasons of Yaz in Flux, I think okay, yeah, I can maybe buy that a bit more. And of course, love is subjective. Whatever, you know, I'm sure some people will love someone and I'm like, they look like an absolute twat. So you know, maybe I haven't seen everything the Doctor's seen, whatever. But yeah, outside of that, I do think, considering it only really kickstarted the story in Eve of the Daleks, I do think we got some decent development, particularly for 13's side of things. So it's nice to know they're both on the same page about things currently. Whether or not Yaz actually agrees to what the Doctor says and stuff is one thing or another. But we're clearly holding off on a lot of that emotional kind of climax for 13's last episode. So I wasn't too surprised that they would kind of just be a bit meandering in this one because it was an unexpected episode. But I still really liked what they did with it. I thought they had a few kind of sweet moments together. So I'm actually actively looking forward to seeing where that goes in her last story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the whole Thasmin thing is one of my external positives. So I did enjoy it a lot in this. I think it, for me, I think this is like the first time we've actually seen a character plot progress properly. Because I mean, you know, with maybe Graham and Ryan and their sort of being close and being like, oh, granddad or whatever it is, you know, that's fine. But I don't feel that was as obvious. You know, it didn't. It felt like that was just like they've been traveling for so long. It's now like, oh yeah, sure, I'll call you a relation now. Thanks. Whereas this one feels very much more. There's some thought behind it, and it's a real thing. If that makes sense. But I do agree that it's sort of a case of a little bit too late, probably, in the fact that, you know, this is effectively now going to be a 3-episode arc, whereas it might have been a whole series arc had the pandemic not happened. And I think, you know, we could have done with just Yaz and the Doctor having time by themselves and travelling, which is obviously only implied at before Flux, which, you know, goes back to the whole argument as to, you know, have there been too many companions this era, especially in the first 2 series, which I'm sure will be discussed long after Jodie's left.
Long after, before everyone hates the next era and like, oh, I want Jodie and Chibnall back, because it always happens.
Always does. But yeah, I do agree. I liked it in this. It felt very heartfelt and wholesome, and it felt, you know, it felt like it was real conversations that they would have as real people, and even if it is a little bit reminiscent of what David Tennant said to Rose in School Reunion, I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same person, effectively. So, you know. But I also liked that they referenced River Song. It was like, yeah, I'm technically still married because you know,
even my
she
wife.
Is. Yeah, I mean, it's great, and I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get plenty more in the next special.
Depends how long it is.
Yeah.
Depends how more companions are coming back.
All of them. All of the companions
yes.
still alive.
What companions should we have in Centenary? Yes.
All of them.
all of them,
please. So my sort of first positive, although technically the second one, is the TARDIS team. You know, our best trio, Dan, Yaz, and the Doctor. I think they're great. I think they've got good chemistry between all 3 of them. You can tell they've been trapped in a COVID bubble with each other for however many weeks. And I really like it. I just really like. There's a few comedy moments where Dan's like, "Oh, I shouldn't wander off," and then they cut to the TARDIS like, "He's wandered off," and it's like, I like it. You know, and Yaz dresses him in this stupid pirate outfit, and he's like, What's wrong with this?" He's like, "Oh, at least you didn't have the hook." What? It's like, you know, the good chemistry between them, I think, really works. You believe they've been traveling with each other for a long time, and you know, it's also the fact that Dan can clearly see what, you know, Yaz and the Doctor needed to be able to see, that was between
Yeah.
them, which I think really
It
helps. And
justifies still having another companion in there, really.
yeah, yeah, and it makes sense. And I think he's great. He had a couple of nice moments in this one. Um, I don't think he wasn't the standout for this one, as in
Hmm.
I think that's purely because he wasn't given as much screen time as other characters,
Yeah.
which is fine. There's still plenty on there, and it was only a 47-minute long episode in the end. Um, so yeah, I think the whole TARDIS team is great. I wish we had more of them. I hope they produce more content, whether that's books or Big Finish or comics or whatever. So hopefully we get
What
plenty
I
more.
would give for a Dan Big Finish series
Depends
called
how he
"What's the
ends
Point
up.
of Being Alive?"
Yeah, God, could you imagine? It's just called Life, and then it's Um,
Oh,
but yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. I imagine John Bishop will just go back to doing stand up after this.
yeah, he's got
He
his
already
material
is.
for another couple of tours, and he's done now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the TARDIS team I think is great. Please give me more. If not, I will cry. So what is your third
Oh,
positive?
okay. My third positive is the setting.
Hmm.
Oh, like the whole piratey themes and setting it on a ship and stuff. I think it's really cool. Um, just like the visuals of the whole like aesthetic, really. Like the image of like the TARDIS underwater and stuff. I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And just what you can kind of gain from having an episode set on a pirate ship or set underwater and stuff like that. Makes sense when it's the Sea Devils, obviously.
Hmm.
It's not something we see all too often. Um,
See.
see, um, God, I'm having flashbacks to catching a sea bass Animal Crossing now.
No,
It's a C
no.
plus, which probably is kind of a fitting rating anyway. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I just really liked what it kind of separated the episode out a bit. I think gave it like more of a unique flair because it's been quite a while since we've had like a pirate episode, and
Yep.
certainly a long while since we've had a good pirate episode. So I'm not sure Doctor Who's ever had a good pirate episode. But maybe I'm wrong. I haven't seen Curse of Black Spot in years, so we'll see when we get there in
Yeah,
about a year.
soon.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I really liked some of the visuals behind it. And yeah, very kind of pleasing to see them kind of change outfits up a bit. Some people will moan about it, but I quite enjoyed changing up in that style.
Hmm.
Um, just the idea of like them swinging on the ropes and the cannonball fight and the sword fights and stuff. Has it been done better in other mediums? Of course it has, because Doctor Who is £5 budget per episode. But I like that they gave it a good go, and I think there's a charm to it. And I do think it really does set it apart from Flux and from even the Daleks, and probably from the Centenary as well, in terms of like what it's trying to do. In terms of that, it does feel like kind of a one-off special, because it really does lead into like the theming and stuff. And they're not really traveling about in the TARDIS all too much, because the main settings are the ship and then inside the creature thing, I think. Whatever. But
Yep.
yeah, I really like the kind of theming of the pirate aesthetic and everything that kind of brought to the episode.
Hmm. Yep, I agree. And sort of linked to that, my third positive is the sword fight that they sort of have on the boat. I just really enjoyed. I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, this is very, high octane and tense. It's like, you get a bit of a jolt to wake up and like, oh, action, action, which I quite enjoyed. I think the episode definitely sort of needed it in there to sort of provide a little bit more action, literally, to the episode. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's just, hey, we're here. Oh, we're gone. Oh, we're back again. It's a bit. Other than that, but I think this is definitely one of the best sort of choreographed fights I think the show sort of had. It felt very planned and choreographed quite well, which is a good sign rather than just sort of previous where they're like, oh yeah, and just going for
Mm-hmm.
it. Which I which I enjoyed. I think it gave at least most characters a chance to shine in their little sort of fights. In terms of what it was, except for the one guy that was like and then
Just hiding.
got
Yeah.
saved. Yeah,
I mean, it would be me in that
yeah,
situation.
yeah, same.
But still.
But yeah, I think it was a really nice sort of moment, a really entertaining moment, and it just sort of bumped the episode up a little bit rather than it just sort of being more running through corridors. Let's do stuff, because I don't think we've seen this kind of action from Jodie's Doctor, like properly taking part in the action. I don't
Yeah.
think we've had from her, which I think was quite good, especially in Flux, where she was pretty much just a prisoner or running away from something. In Flux, I think it's good to have this sort of action sequence to showcase a bit of range. I
Mm-hmm.
think, which was good. Again, shame there's only one episode left for her to do more, but what can you do?
Yeah.
Um,
She's gonna die, so
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, she might take part in the action in that case, but I guess David Tennant didn't really take part in the action. He just sort of absorbed,
Yeah,
absorbed energy. But
he fell a long way that should have killed him anyway, and then
yeah.
was
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know what? I'm just
Yeah,
gonna die
it's
anyway.
definitely the
But
radiation. Yeah,
died for Wilf, so
yeah.
well,
So,
I can't fault him for that.
no, no.
I
Uh,
too would die for Wilf.
but yeah, so the sort of sword fight, sort of my favorite, and one of my additional positives was the cinematography and sort of the visuals for this. The style, I think, looked amazing. You could kind of tell at times that it was filmed during the pandemic because obviously it was early days of the pandemic. I think when this was filmed back in, well, it was probably early last year, wouldn't it? I would have thought, if
Yeah,
not
this
after
is
late
one of the
2020.
earliest pictures to leak, I think, with them filming this.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you can kind of tell, but I think they do a really good job with the visuals in this. Obviously, with the TARDIS on the floor, the flying ship, the Sea Devil statue with the little village. It all looks great. As all of Jodie's have, to be fair, they all of the episodes
mm.
that they've had have looked great. Um, but yeah, enjoyed it and enjoyed the humor as well. I think that's something that I didn't realize was in there until I sort of rewatched it. There's some nice humorous moments, specifically the no ship Sherlock joke, which went over my head
Yeah,
at the time, and I was like, "Oh, that's
yeah,
very
me
funny."
too.
Um, and then it's like, "Oh, where's your crew? This is my crew. Ah, we're going to die." It's like,
They're
"Oh,
going to death.
great." So I think there was some nice humor in this as well, which was really welcomed for me. What other positives do you have, if any?
Um, I did very much enjoy Dan just being a
Dan.
fool. Um, so yeah, I think I'd kind of agree with your whole TARDIS team because I do really like these three together. I think they work very well. I don't really mind which two they kind of pair up together when they sometimes have to. I think all combinations work really well. So yeah, I would definitely kind of go for that as well.
Yeah, fair enough. So now we move on to the negatives, because obviously, of course, we do. We always have to talk about what's bad. Uh,
Yes.
my first one is sort of the lack of character depth,
Right.
specifically.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my second one.
yes, so Madam Ching, she doesn't need to be in
Not really.
it. She's only there to awaken the Sea Devil at the start, and then that's about it.
Yeah.
If her crew had been captured by the Sea Devils and she was trying to get them back, I think that would have been better than, oh, somebody else has taken my crew and I need to pay them.
Yeah.
But again, that could be COVID. They can't have a whole crew of people stuck in a little small cage.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that's something that actually happened and if they've just done like a Doctor Who explanation for like
yeah,
what it is.
maybe. But
I'm not
either
sure.
way,
It is a shame that she was a real person and
yeah,
there wasn't much of her.
no, no. I think that's sort of problem. She wasn't given much to do. She could have been, oh, I've woken them up. I've I've lobbed something off of this statue for some reason, which means it's awake now. Bye.
Yeah.
That's effectively what it could have been. Same with the guy
Mhm.
whose dad dies. He's sort of pretty useless. And he's like, "Oh, I have the key. Whoopsie!" And
Yeah.
then
Then he's like super happy at the end. Like your
yeah,
dad died
yeah.
half an hour ago.
I'm going to kill you. I love you. I'm going to give you a hug. Uh, I think that, there's not that. And again, it's time constraints, and I'm sure all that kind of stuff. There just needs
Yeah,
to be
it
a little
feels
bit.
like stuff there was kind of probably cut
Yeah,
out.
maybe if she like cut. I thought when she cut off the statue, she had like the keystone or whatever it was. I thought
Mm.
that was going to be what it was, but then when his like necklace was going, I was like, oh, I didn't know he was wearing a necklace.
Yeah.
So they could have maybe just sort of alluded to that a little bit more, had him look at it like, oh, this is my dad's whatever.
Yeah.
Had a little bit more to it, kind of like in Pirates of the Caribbean when he's got the coin and he's found with it, and that kind of thing in the first one, where that that's what they're looking for. But unfortunately, those two sort of weren't given much depth. I think the other pirate captain guy, I think that's a fairly well-rounded story. He tried to save his crew and they imprisoned him, and he got his
Mhm.
redemption. I think that's a pretty good arc. I don't know what other depth you could give him for that. Um,
Yeah.
so that's fine. But and then obviously we have the sort of the Sea Devils. Well, I'll come on to that in a bit as well.
Mhm.
But the human characters, I do think, well, two two of the three ones introduced could have done with a little bit more depth given to them. But maybe that's an issue with the constraints of time, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
But what can you do? That's sort of my main thing is that I just didn't feel any connection to them. If one of them was to die, I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah.
So never
And
mind.
one of them did.
One of them did, and I was like, oh no. So no. So what? So well, I guess that's your second one. Second
That's
again.
my second, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not very good. It's terrible.
No.
Well, I'll go next again then.
Okay.
Along with the Sea Devils, obviously speaking, the generic villain plot.
Yeah.
It was just very generic. It was very much
You,
I'm going to make
yeah.
the world myself. And then,
You can tell that it was like, you have a week to write this script.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Yeah, basically. And he did. I think he did, didn't he? Did he say in the Radio Times interview that he had literally like a week?
Yeah, he didn't have long at all. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, fine. A lot of villains are, I'm going to take over the world, but what what else are you going to give the Sea Devils to do? When they
Yeah, I
return?
think this is why they don't show up that often, because this is literally the plot of the Sea Devils. This is what they're trying to do in that.
I want
Except they have the Master helping them in that one.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say you could link it with pollution and blah blah blah, but then people are like, oh, it's so woke.
Yeah.
But
They should have been in Praxius.
Yeah,
it was a perfect opportunity to reintroduce
that would have made this make sense. But yeah, it's just, especially I think because they're like, oh, you were all a peaceful race. Why are you now evil? And they just don't. They're just like, because we are, bitch. And they never say, oh, because
pirates.
Whatever. Yeah, it's just because I am bad, Sea Devil.
Yeah.
I think it just needs a little bit more motivation as to why this Sea Devil is bad, why he wants, maybe have him have a run-in with pirate crews before. Maybe that's, because there's no real reason as to why he's attacking these ships in the first place. I think there needs to be a little bit more depth, even if it's a case of they've been, polluting my oceans with their pirating or something like that. I don't know. So, never mind. Most, it's the same with the Daleks when they come back. It's, we want to kill everyone. But at least they sort of have different motivations each time, or at least they try and do it in more unique ways.
Yeah.
Whereas this very much felt like I'm going to do this thing which inverts the poles, apparently, which means everything floods. I was like, okay. Sure, pal, whatever you say. So yeah, unfortunately, as much as I like them in it, I just don't think they had enough motivation to be this evil.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed something. Who knows?
I think that's fair.
In which case, what's your first slash second?
My first slash second. I think probably particularly in the beginning, I think there's some very choppy editing. Maybe that's just down to, they had to put this together with sellotape and string. And they didn't have much time to do it and all of that. But some very weird choices, I think, fairly early on. Particularly the Doctor's first encounter with the Sea Devil, and it's like swinging at her, and then it's just a shot of her going, whoa, and
a shot of him going, they're clearly not in the same room.
They film that on different days completely. So that's kind of a shame, and it just goes back and forth so much. I'm like, oh god, you're making it really obvious now what's going on here. And I guess you need action stuff, but that felt very odd to me. Just a few decisions like that, I think. That's what makes me think like this was supposed to be an hour and they had to cut 10 minutes out. Because just from scene to scene, I'm like, this feels like something should have happened there that we just haven't seen. And again, the first encounter with the Sea Devil, I do think is the worst probably instance of it. Because they're just talking, and then Doctor's like, now, and suddenly he hasn't done have this plan with the net. I'm like, what happened there? How'd you come at that? I feel like that must have been like a scene of them orchestrating that while he's like yapping on or something, and they just had to cut it for time.
Or even beforehand, because it's like, screaming, everyone's dying, and then they arrive after everyone's dead, and it's like, so how did you set up that? Did you just let everybody die while you were setting up the rope?
It's just very, very bizarrely kind of put together. So again, it might just be they had to just make do with what they had and the time slot they ended up being given, and they thought it was going to be longer or something. It's the fact that they deemed it as a special. They probably assumed it was going to be longer, but it just wasn't in the end. So maybe it's that, and maybe I'm being harsh, but at the end of the day, we have to judge the final product that we were given. And I do think there were a few choices like that, a bit like, ooh, and just some, pretty poor editing. I think it got better as the episode went on, I would say.
More seamless.
They definitely, I think if they cut stuff out, I think it was mainly from the first act, I think. But it is all it is, but it's kind of a shame.
It also feels like all of that stuff that's like in the boats and under the water and stuff, that's obviously all filmed at the same, all at the
Yeah.
same time, and everyone's on set at the same time. Whereas for the village at the start, it very much feels like certain people were on set at different days, so they had to get certain shots, like with the
Yeah.
Sea Devil swinging and the TARDIS team sort of running away, and then all the other things that happen. I think that's definitely the choppiest bit.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just, an oversight or again, something they just had to cut, but like no resolution with the whole monster thing. It just disappears from the story. That just might be they had to cut the scenes or they couldn't finish the VFX for a conclusion to that in time or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that maybe had to go as well. But,
Agreed.
a lot of what ifs, and we just have to deal with what we've got. So
Yeah.
it's a shame.
My sort of third one, and I think this is an issue that we've spoken about before with Chibbers' writing, over-explaining what's happening on the TV.
That's mine, Technobabble.
Yep. Yeah.
I've put. I think this is the most technobabbly episode of the Chibnall era, and that is saying something.
Like, to be fair, I think that there are two different things here. I think for the technobabble, I can sort of accept it in the fact that at least they're explaining it in some way. It might be complete junk, but at least it's an explanation. But what I think annoys me sort of the most is where it's like, and this was a scene between Yaz and the Doctor in the TARDIS, like, oh, so we're going back in time to see what happened. We're going back in time to see what happened. Okay, I'm pulling this lever to go back in time and see what happened. I'm like, I get it. You're going back in time to see what happened.
Yeah, this isn't Dora the Explorer. Like, it's Doctor Who. It's fine.
And I think it happened a couple of times in this episode, but that's sort of the sort of biggest offender, really, is that I get it. You just need to say it once, and then we can go. If somebody misses it once, that's because they're not paying attention. Twice, fine. Be like Yaz going, oh, so are we going back in time? Yes, we're going back in time, and then that's fine. But then don't keep repeating it. And I think it loses it a little bit towards the end when it's sort of there's less to explain. But it's very much a case of just keep telling me what you're doing. You can just say, right, we're going back in time. Done. Go. You're gone. And then it's fine. And then maybe when you come out, it's like, this is the ship where it all happened. We're going to see what happened and do it then. But that's my issue. It's mainly just I don't need to be told 3 times and then shown it and then told again. It needs to you just need to calm down, Chibnall. Stop writing it. Stop. You only did it once. Stop it. Stop typing. So I think that's fine. I think, there was a load of technobabble about, oh, you're going to switch this and do this. I'm like, it's fine. I guess whatever they found could do that with his weird machine. Sure. Machines have done more, machines have done less. It's all about the different technology. I think, there are times when it could have been explained better, like when it's like, oh, the world is in chaos or something, and the stars are moving. It's like, how could the stars move before he even pushed the button? That doesn't make sense. So I think there could have been a bit more explanation in terms of that, or just don't include it. How about that?
Yeah.
Cool visuals, but maybe wrong time in the episode. But yeah, so there's just too much over explaining. So I won't be sad to see that leave at the end of next episode. Not that it's not like, oh my god, this is the worst thing I've ever listened to. It's the worst thing I've ever watched.
No,
there
I think
are worse.
The worst thing about it is that it happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like the individual events are bad. It's just that there's a lot of it.
And I get it if maybe you've written all of these in bulk, and you've then sent them off and they get done, and then you don't realise that's happened until the episodes are made, and you're like, well, shit, we can't change it now. Maybe that's the extent, with especially through Flux through to this one. Maybe it's just a case of whoops. But it's just a bit too much, I think. But as I said, it's not the worst writing we've ever had, either in the show or in media in general. Which is good.
It's not Riverdale, so
no, that's true. You're not wrong. It's not Morbius. So what is your sort of third one? Is it sort of that?
Yeah, I just put Technobabble City is what I've called this episode.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it in the year anyway. There's a lot of it in Doctor Who, because of course. But this episode in particular felt like it's overstuffed and yet a simple plot, and it is very bizarre. Here's Madame Ching doing her own separate thing, and now here's how the Sea Devils are making this ship fly and why they're making this ship fly. Here's them, teleporting powers, and this is how they do that, and this is how they're gonna flood the Earth all over again, and this is how we're going to get Madame Ching on our side and go off and do this separate thing with the treasure and all of that. There's just so much explaining things. And again, if it was like an hour long, perhaps it wouldn't be as bad because you kind of pace it out a bit better. But there's just so much so quickly. And it is a shame that we have so much of that. But yeah, it just makes the episode kind of feel very overcomplicated. I think even when I watched it the first time, I was like, I'm sure this makes sense, but I don't know what they're saying. And that does tend to be a case until I rewatch it and I'm like, okay, so this pieces together like that. And,
you could just say this. You could just say this piece of kit will melt the ice caps and flood the Earth.
Yeah.
That's all you really need. You don't need to do the whole. It's gonna flip the poles and do longitude and that whatever it was. You just say we're gonna melt the ice caps.
Yeah.
Easy.
Basically.
But I guess maybe he had a word count to fill. We've all been there.
Maybe. Yeah, that's true.
we can relate to it. It's fine. It's like,
Therefore, I must conclude that my conclusion being this.
The script needs to be 70 pages. I've only got 68. Oh no! What am I gonna do?
What can I say? What have I
know. If I say she'll flip the poles, then that means I can get another page in. Good.
We need to stop them, Doctor. Yeah, Doctor, we need to stop them.
They're going to flip the poles. They're going to flip the poles. You're going to flip the poles.
The Sea Devils cheer for 10 minutes.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. There are worse things that could be happening.
I'm sure if I wrote Doctor Who, I'd be the same.
So. Oh yeah. And this is I think this is kind of the problem where, if this is how your showrunner writes scripts, it's going to be a feature. Everyone writes their scripts differently. Everyone focuses on different things. I know. I think Chibnall has spoken recently about how Russell focuses more on the characters of his story and sort of bases it around them, whereas I think Chibnall's more a case of basing it around the sort of event, the sort of the thing that's happening in the episode rather than necessarily the characters. I think sometimes that shows. But hey, that's why you have different showrunners for different eras of Doctor Who, because
that's particularly bizarre because outside of Doctor Who, Chibnall's so good with characters and he focuses on that, like Broadchurch and stuff.
Yeah, and it is a surprise. But maybe if we go back and watch Broadchurch, we'll have a similar thing. My son's died. Your son's died. Your son's died. The boys died. Maybe there's something true, like that. Maybe we'll have to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, maybe he just really wants to do something different with Doctor Who and a chance to write something a bit differently. But...
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got.
We'll never know until his Writer's Tale book comes out.
No, which I don't think ever will. We haven't had one for Moffat. We're not getting one for this. We might get one with Russell too. You never know.
I think with how the fandom's treated Chibnall, he's never doing anything like that.
No, and I think he was talking to the Radio Times. It's going completely off tangent, but he did an interview with the Radio Times before this episode came out, talking about how COVID had impacted everything and sort of the fact that he doesn't read online discourse. He doesn't look at the message boards or anything, and he said that's something that Russell and Moffat both told him to do. Just ignore.
Absolutely, that completely fucked Moffat up. Moffat did a talk at a university like a month or so ago, and someone asked him like about fan backlash and how people like target him personally for scripts and stuff. And he was like, at the end of the day, when you have a deadline and you're set up at 4 a.m. trying to get other writers' scripts done, to so people can actually learn their lines in time and allow the production to actually go ahead, you kind of just have to wing it. And you just have to put an explanation in there, even if people aren't going to like it. It's something. So I do think probably one of the hardest shows in the world to run, I would say.
100%, yeah.
So I don't think I would do it. I would do it for like a year, maybe at most. But I'm out. Chris Eccleston had the right idea. Do 1 year, then So it's so much easier to be a fan and critique it than to work on the show in any capacity.
Yeah.
So
and again,
what are we even doing here?
You read. I just finished reading the Writer's Tale, the sort of final version of it, and in that, even Russell's saying, it's an absolute ball ache. He was up. He's always up to like 4 a.m. He's chain smoking. Trying to get these.
It doesn't seem to be a healthy job.
No, sure. And reading it does offer a new line to it, which is why I never tried to sort of be like, oh, Chibnall's the worst. Chibnall's done everything wrong. Oh, it's all his fault, because there's so much that goes into these episodes, especially when you have literally a week to turn around a script from start to finish, and your whole.
And he had to showrun Doctor Who during 2 years of a pandemic. I couldn't even imagine. Like the fact that we got any Doctor Who at all in the past 2 years is a fucking miracle.
Yeah, they could have
So
waited until last year to start filming, and we could have got
yeah,
a
he
proper.
he said like I thought we were going to have to just stop after series 12 because of the pandemic. We didn't. We thought Jodie would just have to leave and that'd be it. So
Yeah,
the fact that we got Flux and then these is
and
standing.
it is good, and that's a big credit to him. We can complain all we want about sort of the dialogue in it, but at the end of the day,
At
probably
least we
nobody
have
else is.
dialogue to complain about.
Yeah, exactly. So have you got any other sort of negative points you want to hit on before we wrap up?
What did I want to say? Yeah, just the sea monster kind of getting dropped from the story is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, that's my one as
Because
well.
it's such a big deal. So yeah, you have the classic fans be like, "Oh, it wasn't the Merker like I convinced myself it was, so it's bad." Shut up.
Have you
But
seen the Merker in those episodes? You'd be grateful it wasn't that.
yeah, if you like the Merker so much, just watch the episode with the Merker in,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is not great. So it that in particular, I think is a shame that it was a big plot point for a while, and it ate that poor man just wanting to do some fishing. There's no real resolution to it. But
it needed a line that was like, "Oh, I've recalled the beast. It's gonna attack us, or
yeah,
when we implode the base, it's gonna take it with it, or something like that."
yeah,
It just needed
and
something.
also the other thing I would say, I find it quite hilarious, but I think people have rightly critiqued it when the Sea Devil jumps into the ship. Fucking
Oh yeah,
hilarious. Like, it's terrible. Especially because they established that he can just teleport around. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you leaping onto the ship when you can just teleport? So it is what it is. But I do find it funny. Someone made an edit of like the sound of Mario jumping and he does it. I found it very, very pleasing. That's why those so bad. It's good moments for me. I found that quite charming, but it didn't look particularly good, especially when you'd established in the story that guy can teleport around. But
I think that's fair. Maybe he hadn't got his teleport powers yet because he'd only just been woken up.
He was rusty. Yeah, he just wanted to stretch his legs a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
He wanted to show off in front of his pals. So.
Who knows? Yeah. I think that's sort of it then. I'll wrap us up for the positives and negatives. I know it's only been 2 days since the episode, but have you got any interesting facts for us?
I do, in fact, yes. In fact. Okay, let's have a look. So this is a fairly obvious one, but this is the second Easter special of Doctor Who, following Planet of the Dead in 2009. So it's been a while. When will we get our next one? Who can say? Probably the 14th Doctor's last year. They just like doing year specials now. But yeah. This is the first episode of the Chibnall era to show a coming soon trailer prior to the end credits playing. Normally they save until afterwards. This is also the first episode of the era to not play the Doctor Who theme over a next time trailer, instead using a special rendition of the 13th Doctor's theme, which feels fitting since it's her last trailer. So that's nice. The Sea Devil designs were purposely chosen to reflect closer to how they looked in the Sea Devils, as opposed to Warriors of the Deep, where they had much longer necks and less prominent ears, if you will, because they do look terrible in Warriors of the Deep. It's like how the Sontarans just get worse and worse over time in the classic series. The episode's sets were particularly ambitious for this story, including the construction of a full-size pirate ship. Producer Matt Strevens believes them to be the largest sets ever made for Doctor Who, and Mandip Gill stated, who plays Yaz obviously, says that they're the biggest sets she's ever worked on.
So that's where all the money went.
That's where all the money went, on the ship. And to be fair, the ship does look good. And people can't say, "Oh, it looks ship shape." Yes. The end credits misspelled Malcolm Huck's name. Hulk created the Sea Devils and the Solarians. So a bit of a shame. But again, I think it just shows how tacked together this story was in like 5 days. And then, not necessarily a fun fact, but I feel like I can't just ignore things that maybe don't reflect so great on the era. But with overnight viewing figures of 2.2 million, this is the lowest on-the-day viewing figures in the show's history, taking the place of Battlefield Part 1 in 1989. But I will also note this, we don't have the context of how other things did on the day yet, so it might just be a low day for TV in general. And the rest of the era has held up viewing figures up till now. It has been fine, but admittedly, that's not great. But at the end of the day, this era is coming to an end.
Doesn't matter.
At this point, no.
No, exactly. No, I did see those figures and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Oh, and that's a badness.
If you look at them as well, they did decline throughout the whole of Flux as well. They were slowly going.
Yeah, but that happens every series.
And it does, yeah. Normally, but to be fair, normally there's a bit of a bump for the final episode of the series. But maybe because this was all one story, there isn't that bump. Because
I think so. Yeah, it's consistent.
Drop in and do that.
And yeah, because I think they also said something what was it that overlapped? There was something on like afterwards that, oh yeah, people thought they were going to switch channels and tune into, but there wasn't a significant drop in like the last 10 minutes of the episode or anything. So if people were watching it, they were watching it to the end, which is good.
Yeah, and I think, as you sort of mentioned, there's only one episode of Jodie's Era left. I imagine that's going to get a fairly high viewing, because A, it's her last one, so people will be tuning in to see the end.
They want to see the new Doctor and everything as well.
New Doctor. It's got
potentially see the new Doctor.
It's got Daleks. It's got Cybermen. It's got the Master. So I would expect there to be a jump in this one, and then I'll probably expect there to be a bigger jump for the 60th next year, and then maybe that'll stay steady for the start of the next series. Although, depending on how that goes, naturally,
the first episode of a new era is always huge.
Yes,
so.
Yeah,
and Jodie's was the biggest ever.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's just how it goes. And it's all, you've got to take into account compared to when Doctor Who was out in 2005, streaming's become a thing. People will wait until it's on demand. People will wait until the whole thing's out to watch it. All that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
Will
even with
change for that?
Yeah, with streaming being such a big deal, like with this era in particular, is when it really kicked off. The fact that Jodie's first series had exactly the same drop as Chris Eccleston's did, which is the first show, the first series that it came back to. So it's still performing well. Admittedly, this one didn't do great. At this point. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were kind of like, it's standalone. I don't need to watch it.
Yeah, they probably heard like this is just a bonus episode. Like, I can just catch this anytime. Yeah, especially because it's coming out on DVD with Eve of the Daleks in like 2 weeks. So
there's no immediacy to watch this one. You're not going to get an episode next week, so you need to watch. All that plays into it. I'm sure.
Physical media sales of this era have been like really, really strong as well. Yeah, they've always topped the charts when they've come out, so that's good.
Yeah, that's not too bad. But then again,
I think people just like playing catch up with shows nowadays. I think rather than just feeling like they have to catch them
waiting for it all to be out and then watching it, unless it's your Game of Thrones or your your Mandalorian, where you'll get spoiled straight away when it's out, and I don't think that necessarily happens with Doctor Who because there's not necessarily too much to spoil.
Yeah.
Anyway, doesn't matter. What are you rating this episode out of 10?
What should I go for? I'm torn between 6.5 and a 7. I think.
Interesting.
What do I lean to? I mean, the fact that they made the bonus episode in the pandemic and everything, and it's Sea Devils, and there's not too much I like absolutely despised. I think I'll be kind and lean towards a 7. I think.
Oh, nice. Mine's a 6. Just
fair.
Because I think it's your run of the mill. I don't even know. Is that what I gave? Let me check. Is that what I gave Planet of the Dead? I gave Planet of the Dead. No, I gave that a 5.5. So it is better than that. So I think, but we'll probably, looking back on this, I imagine we'll just see it as a fine episode. That is just part of a rewatch. I don't think I'll be like, I really want to watch Legend of the Sea Devils again. But what can you do? As we mentioned before, not every episode is going to be the best ever. So never mind. It does seem, critically, it's sort of been the same, your standard one. I know on the day, The Guardian, I think, reviewed it and gave it 3 stars, which is almost pretty much middle of the road.
Yeah, that's 6 out of 10.
Other ones are, it's the worst thing ever because they just want to get, your angry clicks in and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that's probably why we don't do that well on this one. They're probably just like, they're sitting on the fence. If we went, this is the worst Doctor Who ever, and then just went in, maybe we'll,
yeah,
we'll hit the stratosphere of views. But
it's fine. It's fine. The reaction is drawing a pretty positive response from people that watch those. So that's something.
It is. So that is it for new Doctor Who, at least new visual Doctor Who until autumn 2024. But there's plenty to talk about between now and then, including apparently the next Doctor being revealed within weeks or something.
Yes.
So I'm sure we will return for more discussions about the future of Doctor Who and what all can happen, and how Jodie's going to bow out and all that jazz.
See if the rumours about her drowning are true, which suddenly started up in the past week, which is a lot.
That makes sense. Love it.
When she was like,
she's drowned.
Basically, she's drowned. Yeah, that's where it came from. But also when in the last episode, she was like, I'd be a bit embarrassing if you drowned after all this. People were like, oh no.
Yeah, I thought
foreshadowing.
Yeah, you never know. It could be. I
That would be
doubt it though.
dark.
But you never
I
know.
don't think they'd have the Doctor drown.
No.
Again, Tom
Yeah,
Baker drowned,
not again. Not
technically,
again.
but
Yeah.
it's fine. It worked out fine.
But yeah, we will be back to talk about all things other Doctor Who. I'm sure over the coming weeks. But in the meantime, we do still talk about older episodes. We're going through New Who at the minute. We're almost at the end of David Tennant's run. We're just approaching the end of time. Part 1 is up next. So that'll be out over the weekend. So have a little gander at that. And yeah, we'll definitely be back for more Doctor Who at some point. You can almost guarantee it.
Yes.
But yeah, that's it. Bye bye.
Bye.